and welcome everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this Backwards K baseball trade deadline extravaganza. I am Chris Asbrock, and I'm your host today. And as always, each and every week, I am joined by my esteemed colleague, Scott Kaiser. Scott, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right, man. It's the trade deadline.
Dude, it is, man. Like, trade deadline tomorrow. I mean, we've already got just a flurry of moves that we have seen so far already. And we got the phones ready here. We're looking. We're ready. We got to refresh
trades. I was going to say trades happening just moments before the show happens. So we're going to be updating and breaking it all down all the way through the show. And the trade deadline's not even till tomorrow. So it's crazy that we're going to miss, a handful of other things. But there's been so much that's already happened. I feel like tomorrow might actually be a little on the quiet side compared to something.
What I tell you, like I texted you the other day, and I was like, dude, this is set up to be boring as hell. I don't think we're
looking at NFL trade deadline boring, but maybe close.
It's going to approach it, I think. Because like I said, when I texted you over the weekend when I saw a couple of the deals that were made, it was like, man, it's just all it took was one domino to fall, and then it's chaos. It's been, because teams, again, have to jump and then, to make sure they don't miss out. And that's what we're seeing right now. So, man.
Yeah. So stuff. Let's take it on back to last Thursday and get things rolling with the earliest of the trades that happened. We're just going to kind of go back to the beginning from where we feel like it kind of got things rolling, the earliest trades that mattered, because obviously there were some trades that happened earlier in the month and the last couple of weeks kind of trickling in, but the real hot and heavy action kind of got started on Thursday. So let's go on ahead and lead things off of going back to Thursday evening,
July 25th. The Arizona Diamondbacks acquire left-handed pitcher AJ Puk from the Miami Marlins for first baseman, third baseman Davison De Los Santos, and Andrew Pintar. This was a big deal, I think, to really get things going. Arizona I don't want to say the rich get richer, but a team that was in the World Series last year really helped themselves out. They only have one left-handed, arm in the bullpen in Joe Manaply. Now you add AJ Puk, who, Puk, when he was with the Oakland A's, he was that, top prospect, and he had all the hype behind him, ends up in Miami, and it's never really turned out to be, phenomenal, like what you would expect from a top prospect. He was solid. By no means was he a disappointment, I wouldn't say. But again, Arizona, they bolster their bullpen with another left-handed arm. When we saw this on Thursday night, it was kind of like, okay, now let's see what we're going to get here. What were your thoughts on that, when you saw AJ Puk to the Arizona Diamondbacks?
I was a little bit surprised, only because the reports out of Miami. I guess the reports out of Miami that everybody was for sale, so it wasn't shocking to see anybody leave. But as far as that bullpen goes, Tanner Scott, their current closer, is the one that everybody had been discussing, and he's been lights out. He had a real shaky start to the year. Spring training, he was dreadful, and it looked like maybe that was going to carry over into the season, because first couple of weeks out of the gates, he was a little slow to start, and then he picked things up. And meanwhile, AJ Puk was starting the year in the starting rotation. He went back to his starting roots, which go back to his Florida days, and they were giving him a shot to be a starter there, but it did not work out at all. He had a 9-something ERA to start the season. He was even worse than Scott was, coming out of the gates there in spring training. And it just never seemed to click for AJ Puk as a starter. Then he got hurt. And then fast forward to where we are now with Arizona, he kind of righted the ship. They got him back there in the bullpen, where he's found some success over the last couple of years. And he was the Marlins closer last year and really flourished in that role. It was his first real success he had consistent, sustained success, I should say, that he had at the major league level. Because like you mentioned, he was with the A's and he had flashed here and there, and even with the Marlins, there were moments of brilliance, but he always seemed to have strings of just getting rocked. But Yeah, no, he's a very solid reliever. Again, surprising that Scott wasn't the first domino to fall out of that bullpen. But as we'll talk about with Miami, he definitely wasn't the last one to go. So good pickup for Arizona, especially since they just have the one left-hander in there. Puck will help them out. They've been struggling overall. I think they're one of those teams that are just kind of trying to hope and stay under the radar like they did last year and just kind of sneak in, not worried about trying to win the division or anything. But they do have to get there first. So I don't know if they have any moves still to come. I know they've struggled on offense quite a bit compared to what they did last year, but that's more to do with Corbin Carroll being MIA for most of this season, just struggling, having the sophomore slump, just wrecking his second season. So I know besides being able to maybe upgrade some smaller areas of the offense, I don't know how much they can do, but AJ Puck, solid move for Arizona overall.
Yeah, that was a great way to get it kicked off. I think for Arizona, like you were saying, just kind of hovering under the radar is really what they need to do. But a team like that, they're a solid ball club. I mean, they really are top to bottom. And sometimes just adding a piece here and there will really help, push the team over the edge. And that's what Arizona's hoping for with this deal, getting Puck. If it works out, great. I mean, there's a definite high reward with it. Because Puck, like I said, when he's on, he's a great pitcher. So I think, again, the depth piece there, just
and
with that bullpen. So
and they had recently Paul Sewell at the back of their bullpen, their closer. He's been up and down the last month.
Yeah.
He's kind of stabilized here recently, but you add Puck, who has been solid, and if Sewell struggles or runs into another a bit of having control issues, then you've at least got Puck there as another option to kind of lean back on if you're Arizona. So shout out to Robert Taylor saying hey in the comment section. Rex Million chiming in saying why didn't his team get what they needed yet, knowing that Rex is a Cleveland fan. They did just make a trade that we'll get to here shortly for Lane Thomas, but he's asking for pitching there in Cleveland, which we know that they have struggled.
Aren't we all though?
Yeah, I was just gonna say sure. We'll get to it a little bit later in the show. I have another Braves update on the injury front because it's not enough. It's becoming a weekly segment here on the show. The Braves injury of the day or of the week. I don't even know the full extent of this one yet, but it doesn't sound good. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So, moving on to the next trade, probably the biggest one, the picture for the show. Randy Arozarena getting traded from Tampa Bay to Seattle was the next the bigger moves, and that was probably the biggest name out there that had kind of floated when you just talk about from like a star standpoint. There are a couple other names out there that might have a big impact, but when you're just talking about star names, Arozarena going to the Mariners is about as big as it got. And it was one of the first dominoes to fall. So Arozarena goes to Seattle, and then the Rays get a few prospects and a player to be named later. But this was the one. This was the where the trade deadline, the flurry of moves. Here we go. This is the one that kind of got everything really kick started after AJ Puck came in. So, what'd you think about Randy going from Seattle? Because I know you are going from Tampa Bay to Seattle. I know you kind of root for Seattle there, seeing as you're rocking that hoodie there.
I had to. No, it was. It's a move that I think if they've got the pitching, they top to bottom 1 through 5. Seattle has probably the best rotation, maybe in the American League, and if not all of baseball from 1 to 5. They needed the offense. They've just with Julio going down, they've had guys J.P. Crawford now going down. It's just it's been rough for them. So adding a guy like Randy Arozarena in there, and they did make a couple other moves as well, which again we'll talk about. But I don't know if I said it on the show last week, but I was as we were talking about it going into the trade deadline, that I was like, man, Trader Jerry's going to, he's gonna get things going. He can't sit out a trade deadline, and that's what Jerry DiPoto does. He makes moves, and this is one Seattle they had to make. They had to get the offense in there, and bringing in a guy like Randy Arozarena brings in that star power. You're going to throw him in the outfield. Once Julio comes back and is healthy, takes a lot of pressure off of him. Man, this is another move that if it works out, it's going to be perfect for Seattle. But again, they need help offensively. Everyone's got to hit, and they just haven't got that yet. But a piece like this, bringing into your clubhouse, and you got the guy hitting the mammoth home runs, and the arms crossed after a big play. That's the kind of swagger that you like to see, and that's the kind of swagger you like having on your team as well. When teams are pushing for the playoffs. So again, Dipoto is going to do what he's going to do to help strengthen his ball club. A team that's got phenomenal starting pitching, needs the offense to help supplement that, and bringing in a guy like Randy Arozarena certainly does help. But that was definitely, like you said, that was a no shit moment. When I saw that deal, I was like, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, it signaled two things. One, that Seattle was definitely, not just yapping about wanting to get some offense, because to their credit, and to Jerry Dipoto's credit, the last couple of off seasons, they've tried different combinations. They've brought in different guys. They overhauled the offense the last two off season. It hasn't worked out because the guys they've brought in and have just struck out a ton, and they continue to lead the league in strikeouts. Arozarena's struggled this year to his standards. He's not, he's only hitting just over 200 for the season. He's done much better the last month and a half. He's played, closer to the Randy Arozarena we've become accustomed to seeing, but he became expendable there in Tampa Bay. And really, when it comes to Tampa Bay, you become expendable as soon as you get close to where your arbitration years end. So not entirely shocking to see Tampa Bay move on from Randy, because this is what they do. And you could tell over the weekend some of the interviews Randy had and just some of the things that he had said about the move. You could see he was a little broken up. He made a name for himself there in Tampa Bay and synonymous with the Rays over the last couple of years and all their success. So good move for Seattle, though. Like you mentioned, they have struggled mightily on offense, and as much as Randy has struggled this season, because he's played well recently, because Seattle's so starved for offense that it couldn't get much worse. Randy brings that all-star pedigree, regardless of the fact that he hasn't necessarily looked like he has in previous years. If he plays as well as he has the last month through the rest of the way and through the rest of the contract while Seattle has him, I'm sure that they'll be very happy with what they get from Randy Arozarena, because that he's a guy that can go 20-20, get you 20 steals in there too. And it's not an earth-shattering move, and I feel like the days of earth-shattering moves are kind of long gone. It's like this is the best type of deal that you get in today's trade deadline, is a guy with a name who's maybe struggling, because anymore the superstar names, even if they're at the end of their contract, because of how many teams get in now, teams are just so reluctant to trade them, and they end up either holding on to them or they get traded sometime tomorrow at the very last minute. And it usually they end up going somewhere unexpected. So we'll have to keep our eye on everything, but I don't expect many more bigger names than Randy Arozarena to get moved. So the fact that he was one of the first names to get moved was kind of interesting from that standpoint.
Yeah, and it wasn't. I don't want to say it was a real hefty price either. I mean, Aiden Smith is the number 12, ranked prospect in MLB pipeline. I guess it is pretty heavy, because actually I was reading it wrong. I was thinking, no, I was reading it right. Just kidding. Yeah, number 12 prospect in the Mariners system, and then Brody Hopkins, the right-handed pitcher, is number 22. So the Mariners gave up their 12th and 22nd prospects. I mean, for Randy Arozarena, who, again, like you were stating, he's batting a career low 211, going into this deal. Let's be real. Randy's not going to be batting that the rest of this way. I think he's, sometimes you just need a little bit of a boost, and a move like this will help that. It's one of those situations. Now you're moving to a team who is, in a battle right now for a division and a wild card spot. When that trade was made, they were only a game out, back of Houston, in the division. So, obviously that's changed, since this happened on Friday. But again, move like that, I think it's a great move. And again, Jerry Dipoto is going to do what he's got to do to build his team right up. And that's, this is the perfect deal, prototypical Jerry Dipoto deal.
Jerry loves trading.
That's what I say. He's Trader Jerry, man. Like, that's just what he does. He doesn't care.
Just for shits and gigs, he likes to make.
He's almost like AJ Preller. They just.
I respect it though. Yeah, you're right. AJ does like to make a lot of moves up there in San Diego too. Although AJ's tend to be a lot like flashier, just from the name standpoint. He likes to go for the biggest names possible.
Yo, he 1,000% does. And, I'm okay with it.
Dipoto makes a lot of solid team moves.
Baseball moves, yeah.
Yeah, and it's in the more like secondary in natures. They don't necessarily grab the headlines. Whereas in San Diego, like I said, Preller's there more to make the headlines along the way.
Dude, it's MLB The Show type shit is what he does. That's just forced trades on, boom, and this is what I'm doing. That's how he approaches it. It's crazy. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Well, what trade do you want to move on to?
Just a good, and this is a deal that we've seen a lot of contender to contender deals. And this was the same what was on Friday the 26th. The Red Sox acquired James Paxton from the Dodgers for Moises Bolivar. Just a simple, move between two teams that are competing. That's really all that was. They reunite with James Paxton. Nothing much from it, but it's just
Dodgers. The Dodgers had designated Paxton for assignment. They've got guys coming back off the injured list and something. And despite the fact that they are looking for rotation help because they've suffered quite a bit of injuries themselves, throughout the year, Paxton leads the league in walks. Strikeouts are down. His ERA is mid fours. He's just been a body this year for the Dodgers, which, they signed him for $6 million in the offseason. So they didn't have a whole lot invested in him. Like you mentioned, he goes back to Boston, where he's had some success over the years. Maybe Boston can get him back on track and more similar to the Paxton that we saw last year. Because last year, after he had come back from injury, he looked really good. The last 2/3 of the season last year, he kind of ran out of gas at the end, but I'm sure that Boston's hoping the familiar surroundings, getting him back in their program. They're hoping that maybe they can recapture some of that and have to pay less than they were willing to pay, in the offseason to acquire services for a full year. So, nothing earth-shattering, especially when, like I said, the Dodgers had designated Paxton for assignment anyway. So it was either he would have just been out on the street to sign with anybody, or the Dodgers made this move and get something in return. So,
like I said, it was just a baseball deal is all it was. Contender to contender. Just depth piece, and that's it. Solid baseball move, I guess, is really the best way to look at it.
Yep. Moving on for sticking on the 26th, though, we've got the Orioles getting Sir Anthony Dominguez and Christian Pache from the Phillies, who in return got Austin Hayes. This Phillies and Orioles, two teams at the top of their respective divisions, both going for it, title contenders, exchanging, secondary pieces. The Phillies have had an amazing bullpen throughout most of the year, but they acquired a couple of pieces to add to that bullpen. And so it looks like Dominguez just kind of was the odd person out. They get some bench depth with Austin Hayes. Again, nothing crazy about this deal. And if you're the Orioles getting Sir Anthony Dominguez, you lost Cano for the year last year. He's out this entire year because he had Tommy John. So you've been a little bit short on the back end, even after signing Kimbrel. And we know Kimbrel can be up and down and have his moments. So having somebody back there that you can trust, it could be another high leverage guy if you're the Orioles, never a bad thing. It seems to be the theme of a lot of the deals. over the last couple of days is there's a lot of bullpen guys moving around.
That's going to be the
A lot of relievers, like a lot of teams looking to shore up that part because, once you get in the playoffs, the games become shorter. Your starters generally only go 5, maybe 6 innings, and teams tend not to push it. And if you can shorten the game and then have guys that you trust for the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, well, then, you only have to lead after 5. And so that's what a team like Baltimore is trying to do by adding to the depth of their bullpen and the Phillies being able to expend on that. So,
yeah, I mean, that, again, this was another deal between two contenders. That's really what it was. Like you were saying, just, depth pieces going back and forth. This is a good, to me, it's a great deal for the Orioles. Again, bringing in Sir Anthony Dominguez, another bullpen arm, like you were saying, helps shorten the game. In Christian Pache, one of the top prospects, it seemed like he just never seemingly got out of his own way. Now his third team within like a year. It's this is good for him. I mean, there's no pressure on him here, because why? You're behind literally all of Baltimore's studs. I mean, so again, no pressure for you. It's just,
no pressure because you're not going to see much playing time.
Exactly. That's exactly what. I mean, that's kind of what I was kind of hinting at a little bit, but it's no pressure for him. So he doesn't have to do much. It's when you get your chance, you go out there and just perform. But Austin Hayes going the other way gives Philadelphia much needed depth, in the outfield for them. So again, another deal that between contenders that is just a good baseball deal. So, I like it. I mean, it was one that I wasn't expecting it, and it was funny because, you read the reports, like when it first came out, they were blowing it up like, oh, all-star outfielder Austin Hayes. And they were making it like he was, their top player. And I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, he's good, but not like, they're overhyping it, I would say, for just a deal between like really backup players.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that Austin Hayes isn't gonna start for Philly. He wasn't starting in Baltimore. Again, good bench piece, good guy to get in their platoon or whatever. I'm assuming that's what they'll do with Marsh.
Yeah.
They've been platooning him all year anyway, so you throw him in there as well, be able to hit the lefties when Marsh is on the bench. It's depth pieces and solid movement for two teams that are hoping to be in the playoffs. And hell, these two teams could find each other in the World Series. Once everything's all said and done. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of it plays out. But not a hugely impactful trade.
No, just really just depth pieces. But at this point, depth is that's what's going to carry you, moving forward. So. Let's move on to the next deal, the same day, Friday. Mariners acquiring Jimmy Garcia from the Blue Jays for Jonathan Clase and Jacob Sharp. It's an outfielder and a catcher. Garcia has been phenomenal for the Blue Jays, one of their few bright spots. So this is, again, another great addition by Jerry DiPoto. You land Randy Arozarena the night before, and then you added a solid depth piece who Garcia is an absolute nightmare against right-handed batters. So now you bring him in. The Mariners at this point in time, or at the time the deal was made, had the best, MLB, in the Major League Baseball, they had the best ERA at 3.41 as a bullpen. So that's, it's pretty impressive. Now you just add, Garcia to that. It's just again, another great move for a team that is really, doing everything they can to, defend off and catch, Houston, depending on the day, whether they're ahead or tied or, behind. They're in a battle with the Houston Astros right now. So, this is another great move for the Mariners to add a solid right-handed arm into that bullpen.
Yeah, and again, this is another sign, another more evidence that Seattle is definitely going for it. They blew the 10-game lead that they had in the Western division there over Houston before Houston finally woke up. Now Houston's overtaken them in the division. You know, the Mariners lost out on making the playoffs last year, but it was what last game of the season, 1 or 2 games or whatever it was. They ended up missing the playoffs after having broken the streak for not making the playoffs the year before. But you know, they want to see some success. They don't want to just get there, and they certainly don't want to come up short. So love this move for Seattle, who has probably the best starting rotation in major leagues 1 through 5, hands down. And again, they've had good guys in their bullpen. They've struggled this year with injuries to some of those back end guys and the setup guys. So this does nothing but strengthen them in that. And you know, with Toronto, you get a couple of prospects that I know Jonathan Clase had made his major league debut in Seattle earlier this season, and speed guy, but supposed to be a prospect that would be able to slide in every day, and maybe not a lot of power, but a top of lineup guy. So we'll see how it goes for him in Toronto. But solid move for the Mariners, who again, you know, it looks like they're not going to have any excuses at the end of this season about not going for it and not making the moves to go for it. So like to see it from a team like Seattle that doesn't have the opportunity necessarily to have a window open for a very long time, and right now it is for them. Might as well go for it when it's open. So
Yeah, and I was just looking at the standings right now. They're tied right now at the top of the AL West with Houston, but then, you know, right as we were talking about that, they're getting their shit kicked in by Boston right now. It's 10-1. So not the best look right now for for a team that is in a battle with the Houston Astros. But, you know, again, it does happen. But, yeah, again, you know, Depoto's going to do what he's going to do to, again, show that this team's going for it. And that's what they are. Again, tied at the top of the AL West against, you know, with the Houston Astros. So, you know, got to do what you got to do to, you know, to push yourself over the edge. You want to which deal do you want to go to next? I mean, do we want to
well, I didn't go to the Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay again.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, yeah.
So going on ahead and moving more pieces out from Tampa Bay. This time they moved on from one of the pitching pieces that they had just brought in a couple years ago, and Zach Eflin had that really good bounce back year last year. This year struggled quite a bit, but still effective. And because of the injuries and struggles that the Orioles have had, then that's who they made this trade with. The Orioles get Zach Eflin, and the Tampa Bay Rays end up getting a trio of prospects. This would have been a bigger deal had it happened probably earlier. You know, the fact that the Orioles found themselves in a situation where they needed a starter is kind of unfortunate, because they had quite a few. And then almost overnight, they lost all of the guys they had with John Means and whatnot. It was just kind of tragic that they've lost so many starters and have still been able to hang in there and do what they've done. But I understand the move for the Orioles. Again, not flashy, nothing special. And for Tampa Bay, it's somebody who they weren't looking to keep long term. They may have resurrected his value and got him to where you could even get this much back, considering they had signed him off the street from Philadelphia. But it was notable when they did sign Eflin that was the largest free agent contract that Tampa Bay had ever given to any single player when they signed Eflin, and just a year later,
that's crazy.
I'm packing. I mean, it's crazy, but it shows you how much they believed in their ability to turn him around. And good for Tampa.
Yeah.
A year later, he's just doing all right. You know, he's not part of the future, and you know he's not going to be around when, you know, they're hoping to be able to right the ship. Go on ahead and ship him out and get some prospects in, and boom, and, you know, Tampa Bay does Tampa Bay things. So I think it's a good trade for both sides. Again, I'm never going to question Tampa Bay when they're bringing in prospects, because they seem to beat teams on just about every trade they make when it involves minor leaguers. So
they know more than everybody else does in
right.
the baseball, period.
Even about other teams' systems.
Yeah, they know teams better than those teams know their own team. It's incredible. I mean, you sit there and, like you were saying, you know, you take Eflin, and then, you know, you sign him to this big deal. You know, you deal him, and then you end up getting 2 top 10 or top 20 prospects from the Orioles, who we know their farm system's absolutely loaded. So, I mean, it's just what Tampa continues to do is just, it's one of those
I'm
situations
so
where
jealous.
I know if Tampa calls you, it's almost like
Hang up the
I
phone.
was gonna say hang up because like I'm gonna get fleeced somehow in this deal, and I don't know how, but it's just they just man, their scouting department's ridiculous. I mean, it is hands down the best in baseball, and it's you see these moves that are made, and now you're just there we go, TJ Friedel 3-run bomb. All right, there we go.
There you go.
There we go. All right, Reds are up 5 or 6-0, I think, right now. We'll take that. Just caught my eye. Yeah, 6-0, bottom 5. Yeah, back to what the move at hand there on that, but it's just what Tampa continues to do is each and every trade deadline, whether they're in it or they're not, they just bolster their ball club, and again, if they call you. Or I mean, you got to be heavily intoxicated to call them to make a move because you're out of your mind. Because you are going to get, they're going to house you somehow, and it's seemingly like what they're doing, and they're just going to continue each and every year. These prospects are going to move their way right up the system, boom, and they're going to ship them out and get more. And it's not like it's not like the Oakland A's where it's like every other cycle, it seems like you're going to hear about the A's. No, it's the fact that pretty much every single year Tampa is in contention. It's just a matter of how in contention. And this year it just didn't pan out as much. They did have injuries, but in this case, they're moving on. And
and would it shock anybody if Tampa Bay was right back in the conversation next year?
That's what
I
I'm
know
saying,
that they've gotten rid of some of their bigger names and some of their more productive players, but they like you mentioned, they keep a steady stream of guys. And I mean, it's always tough to see the forest through the trees when it comes with Tampa Bay because I admittedly don't know as much about their organization, especially when it comes to some of the guys that they acquire. Like they're usually acquiring names that aren't on my radar at all. They're not even necessarily picking the highest ranked prospects half the time. They're getting the what are believed to be second and third rate guys and turning them into household names. So it may not be next year for Tampa Bay, but within the next 2 years, they'll be right there in the conversation to redo what Tampa Bay always does, which is establish themselves as one of the most consistent franchises in baseball, even if they have to do it in a different way than everybody else does just to stay in the conversation.
Yeah, it's impressive. I mean, it is really impressive. And I heard on the radio today that apparently they send multiple scouts to outings where players that they're interested in. And I'm like, man, that's just, these teams got to step up their game. Because, I mean, if you're trying to compete with Tampa, in terms of getting prospects and building up your system, you're not going to be,
good luck.
Yeah, you ain't competing. I mean,
you've seen where there's teams in the league that have tried to copy it. They'll hire away guys from Tampa. But it's been, for whatever reason, it has just not been a formula that other franchises have been able to replicate. Like whatever Tampa Bay is doing with their player development and their scouting department, analytics, whatever it may be, they're doing it better than anybody else is as far as the minor league level goes. Because it's one thing to win by signing a bunch of guys and even signing guys and supplementing your system with free agents. But for Tampa to pretty much never really dabble in free agency and have just a system full of guys that are homegrown or the lowest of low budget free agents that are just kind of sprinkled in here and there, it's very impressive.
It is very impressive. Well, you want to move to the next deal?
Yep, go on ahead, and I'll let you take this one.
We'll go with the same day, Friday. The Mets acquire Ryan Stanek from the Mariners for outfielder Rylan Thomas. This was just a, low-key deal. Nothing really much to say here. The Mets get, they get a bullpen piece there. Stanek, at the time, 4.38 ERA, 44 strikeouts, and 46 appearances. He was the closer. a little bit for Seattle this year. So this is just the move for the Mets to, you know, really just bolster their bullpen, while in return the Mariners, they get a 30, top 30, prospect and an outfielder, 24 years old. Nothing much really to say about that one. I mean, it's typical, I guess a typical deal. Not much to really say. I mean, do you have anything to add or no? I mean, I rambled really on that one for no reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I'm like, for that one again, Mets adding back end up. This seemed like the Mets just trying to be in the conversation because they unexpectedly were, and the Mariners acquiring Garcia and some other pieces for the back end of their bullpen. Stanek became, discardable. So, nothing more to say than, oh, okay, the Mets, look, they made a deal at the deadline so they can tell their fan base that they didn't.
Hey guys, we did something.
Right, they didn't totally punt on everything. So
yeah.
Let's fast forward to the other big weekend deal, because, of course, it wouldn't be a big weekend in a trade world without the Yankees having some sort of say in it. Unlike free agency, where they haven't been able to bully their way into signing everybody that they've wanted over the last 5 to 6 years, at the trade deadline, they've more or less been able to make the moves that they're able to make because guys tend not to say no, or they're not included on the no trade list. So, they're more active on the trade front. This time they go after one of the bigger fish in the pond, and that's Jazz Chisholm from the Marlins, who we mentioned had gone in full on sale mode. Jazz's name had come up in quite a few rumors leading up to this trade deadline. And, the Yankees, I'll let you talk about the prospects that they sent because I'm much less familiar with them. And if there's any of them that are worth a damn, you can let me know. But this was all about, Jazz going to New York. I hate it because I really like Jazz. He's a pretty decent fit for that stadium as a left-hand hitter in the short porch there. He already has his first home run as of this evening as a Yankee. And I wish him nothing but the worst because he's a Yankee. So there's that.
Yeah, I hope to God he falls flat on his face.
Yeah, but no, I mean, from an unbiased standpoint, I actually thought this was a pretty solid deal for New York. The thing about this deal comes down to Jazz is made of glass. And why was he available? Well, one, because the Marlins, again, are selling off everything to try to rebuild. But two, Jazz is injury prone as all hell. As much as I love watching Jazz play, he gets hurt a lot. And the fact that he stayed healthy this year is a minor medical miracle. And if you told me tomorrow that Jazz was out for the season for something that he did while playing, I would not be shocked. So while New York fans are probably, celebrating this for what it is and what they should be, because again, not the biggest deal in the world, not earth-shattering or landscape-altering, but if Jazz being what he is and his body being as fragile as it is, there's always got to be that caution of this could blow up in the Yankees' face just from he might not stay healthy the rest of the way.
Well,
or he could get injured at the worst possible time.
Well, they got him at third base too, so that's that's going to be a little more on him anyway.
Which did you see? I happened to catch. I didn't catch this till this afternoon, but I initially heard those reports that they were going to mix him in there at third base. And Gleyber Torres had come out and said when the trade was made that he's not moving off second base. He's a second baseman, and he plays second base. And I thought, wow, Gleyber Torres, who has sucked ass this entire year, who's on the final year of his deal, who New York has been kind of trying to run out of there for the last few years. Fans have wanted him traded away just based on the fact that he's disappointed them and their expectations. And he's got the nerve to say that he doesn't want to get off of second base. Typical Yankee nonsense with that.
I mean, that's literally I was going to say that. That's what I was leading into. And I'm like, it's so funny that, Gleyber's got the balls to come out there and say that. I mean,
I mean, I could see if he was having like just an immaculate year.
Yeah.
Of course, if he was having the year that everybody had hoped and thought, they might not have made this trade, because that what it comes down to is they needed another hitter. And everybody's seen over the last couple of weeks, the Yankees have kind of fallen apart offensively when Stanton went down and it was just Judge and Soto. And they didn't have anybody protecting those guys. They didn't have any help for those guys. And had Gleyber Torres been help for them, then maybe the Yankees didn't feel the pressure to make this deal. But they had to do something. So Gleyber has nobody to blame but himself for if he feels like his job is threatened, which is an odd stance to take when in a couple months they might not welcome you back with a free agent contract to begin with. So
I mean, let's be real. Are they? I doubt it.
I can't imagine a world not without heavily discounting it. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a price that they'd be willing to pay for him to play, but not a price that he'd be willing to play for. And so I can't imagine the balls it would take to tell your employer that you see your replacement walk in the door and your response is to tell your employer, well, I'm not changing anything I do.
Yeah, that's pretty ballsy. Again, for a guy who has not been good all year.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. I saw that and I was like, oh man, like now you've got to move this guy, like you said, who is made of glass, to a more physically demanding position at third base.
Well, and as far as I know, he's never played third base. I mean, he played shortstop when he came up.
Yeah.
With them. And I mean, obviously the transition, and Jazz is an athlete, and I'm sure he's not gonna, complain about it, similar, but he's not naturally a third baseman. It is more physically demanding, and third base is not an easy position to just pick up on the fly.
Exactly, I know.
I mean, having not played it at the big league level, even if you've played short, it's tough. Like even the best shortstops who make that move from short to third later in their careers struggle sometimes with that move. So, they said they're just going to showcase him there a few times, just to get him some work in. I don't think that's a position. I'm sure that the Yankees are hoping that in a perfect world, they get their outfield all healthy, which would include Stanton. And that because of the situation of everybody having top-notch health, the only position open would be third base to shove Jazz. But again, I can't imagine the idea of putting one of the most injury-prone players in baseball at the hot corner to finish out the year. But good luck, New York.
I know. They just, it's great seeing moves like this, for them. Again, because it's something as biased as we are when it comes to them. Obviously, we want them to fall flat on their face, but it is pretty funny that, Jazz. I mean, he can't go into that clubhouse and even remotely start demanding, hey, I can't. That's not how that's going to work.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because there were rumors that the Yankees didn't want to bring Jazz into the clubhouse because they weren't sure how he would.
How he's going to be.
And then the one that's currently in the clubhouse throws a tantrum the minute the guy walks through the door. Mike Burlon saying that he sees more of what Gleyber is saying. I get it. You want me gone, but you did this, so pay me to play the position you wanted me to play, or pay me to sit. Guaranteed money, baby. I don't knock that stance.
I can't argue. Yeah, I mean,
but it's a weird stance to take when somebody comes in and threatens your job, and you're like, nah, that's cool. I'll just not play if you're gonna do that.
It is. I mean, again, it's odd. Like, and I just remember, we were texting each other back when this happened, and we're both just like, God, now we hate Jazz, and it's like funny. Like, enjoy the Bronx now, dude. Like, it's. You would think that this clubhouse would be much more, I want to say, straightened out. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to figure out the best way to put that. Like with the guys that are in there, Juan Soto, you've got, obviously Aaron Judge, guys like, professionals, that it's so goofy with some of these guys and their mentality and their takes. And I just, man, I mean, I ain't complaining because I want to see them fall flat on their face, but it's just, I mean, you shake your head because, again, like you were saying, the reports were out there, that they weren't sure how this was going to go, and then you decide to bring him in anyway. Who knows, man? Like, but this was, you know, I just saw Mike's comment. I don't know if I can pull that up or.
Yeah, well, and then he mentioned it, and I saw that earlier too. Was that he says, how wild was it seeing Jazz with a backwards hat on in the dugout? That blew me away. George was rolling his grave. Yeah, no, I absolutely saw the backwards hat, and of course, my first instinct when the trade was announced was, guess he's got to shave off his mustache. He's got just a tiny little pencil mustache, but got to shave that off because can't have that in the clubhouse. Although I think that they've softened their stance on how like the stashes, but either way, yes, the backwards hat on was definitely one of those things that had George Steinbrenner still been around, somebody would have gotten a call down to the clubhouse about wearing their hat on backwards.
Yeah, so I was watching the
that
game.
Probably would have been a reason enough for George not to want to trade for him. Like, did you see him? He's too sloppy. He's not professional enough for this franchise.
So I was watching the game last night with Rodney and Scott, him, former Yankee minor leaguer, who when we were watching that and he goes like, this is ridiculous. I mean, he's like, where the hell are the rules? Like, Jazz comes walking in, and this is a guy who, had been part of that organization, the lower levels, obviously, but like, even he was like, dude, this is just ridiculous, man. Like, then you've got Verdugo, who I think is an absolute tool bag anyway. He's out there in his, light blue, cleats and all that crap. And I'm like, man, they just become more of a shit show. It seems like each and every, year. And I'm enjoying it because again, they're going nowhere and I'm liking it.
Well, let's quickly move on to the next trade from there because as interesting and as big a name as Jazz is, I don't want to have to talk about the Yankees any longer.
I don't want to talk about Jazz, but it is what it is.
What's the next trade that you'd like to discuss?
I mean, I guess we can get. I mean, you don't want to talk about Nick Mears going to from the Rockies to the Brewers.
No, I don't care about Nick Mears.
You don't care about that one? That's
no. We'll skip right past that one.
I'm pretty sure your exact words were, "I don't give a shit about the Nick Mears trade."
Well,
I was pretty sure. I was like, I'm with you. I mean,
not to put too fine a point on it. When you're looking at this list, it's like some of these trades are not like the others. So the Nick Mears ones, I feel like we can just move on past.
I mean, that's I'm looking here. I mean, Danny Jansen from Toronto to the Red Sox. I mean,
would have been a bigger deal 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, the Jays they're in sell mode. They're getting rid of a lot of the guys that are, free agents coming up. So I mean, I guess that's really what we're going to look at there. I mean, nothing really to talk about. I keep refreshing my phone to see if there was a deal that just happened a little bit ago, but.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of skip past it. I think you had Carlos Estevez going to the Phillies, which they got rid of Seranthony Dominguez to turn around and get Carlos Estevez. I guess they figured that must have been an upgrade. I know it's righty from a lefty, but that seems like a lateral move to me. I don't know. I don't pay a ton of attention to what was Seranthony Dominguez was doing this year, but I didn't think that he was struggling enough that you needed to replace him with two different trades with Carlos Estevez. But
yeah, I mean he's their closer. I mean, he was the closer for Los Angeles, but I mean, really, I mean that's one I guess we can file under. Don't really care.
Yeah, the Padres also again with the Rays continued sell-off acquired Jason Adam. Another bullpen piece. Rays got 3 more prospects because the Padres don't care about prospects, and that's what the Rays are all about. The Rays also traded away Isaac Paredes, one of their starters.
This one pissed me off.
And I immediately said, fuck the Cubs, because Isaac Paredes goes from the Rays to the Cubs, and Christopher Morel and a couple of prospects go back to Tampa Bay. Let's talk about this one, because this one was surprising because the Cubs are in last place in the division. And they had just kind of come out and said, well, we're not really in sell mode, but we're looking to do what's best to make the team better for 2025, kind of suggesting that they weren't going to make any moves for any bigger name players, but it might just kind of be just some tweaking here and there. Instead, they got getting Isaac Paredes suggests that they might be a little bit more confident in their prospects. Weird in that I know it's not 1-1 because kind of they traded or they let Candelario walk in the offseason, but they did need that third baseman, and here they are trading for Paredes. I know that Paredes is better than Candelario, from the on the field standpoint, but it's the Cubs are making some interesting moves, just the way that they're making them. So, like, I don't think it was a bad trade, and I think it's a good trade for Tampa Bay because, again, getting more prospects for just kind of a okay player. I don't know what Chicago's doing with this one.
Yeah, this didn't really signal like any clear direction for him, because again, Morel has not been, the Christopher Morel of the past. I mean, he's had, better, performances throughout, his career, but I mean, Paredes, you're upgrading power wise, but it's almost, I want to say a like for like. It's a weird one. I mean, again, there's no real direction for him. And that's like, in terms of, like you were saying, I mean, last place in the division, here you go. Now you're making this move. What are you doing? I mean, there's no clear direction on it. And that's what kind of threw me off. I mean, I like Isaac Paredes, but, there was rumors of him going all over, but instead he goes to Chicago. Now, again, Tampa Bay, I think this is another situation where, teams could be getting fleeced here. And I mean, because what Christopher Morel could be. He's got 18 home runs on the season. He's batting under 200, batting 199. He's only 25 years old. This is a situation going, switching over to Tampa could really help him out. And if that's the case, I mean, let's be real. I'm going to say Tampa's going to win this trade because then you get the 29th prospect in Hunter Biggie from the Cubs. I mean, it's just, again, it's a situation where, Tampa seemingly knows more about, teams' prospects than their own team does. So I think that can be a situation here and a like-for-like deal for the most part. It just, this one kind of seemed a little odd to me.
Yeah, well, it's not a move that I guess I would have been expecting if I was a Cubs fan, and from my friends that are Cubs fans, it kind of seemed like a giant shoulder shrug. They weren't necessarily sad to see them trade away Christopher Morel because Morel struggled defensively, and while he may have the hit tool and he may be able to put it all together, he's so streaky and so just up and down and in and out that they would have rather maybe kept him in a vacuum, but they're not exactly devastated to see him go. So I guess we'll see how it works out long term and who ends up with it. But if you told me tomorrow that Christopher Morel turned into a 40 home run beast for Tampa Bay, I'd be like, yeah, that tracks. They figured out whatever it is to make him more consistent and do what they need to do to get the most out of him. That would totally make sense for Tampa Bay. Series of whatever moves. I want to fast forward to the 8-player deal that we had today between 3 teams. So the Dodgers, Cardinals, and the White Sox got together in a rare-ish. I don't know. It seems like it's been more rare the last couple of years at the trade deadline, especially for a 3-team deal. But in the end, the Dodgers get Tommy Edman from the Cardinals. They also got Michael Kopech from the White Sox, as well as Oliver Gonzalez. The Cardinals ended up with Eric Fetty from the White Sox, Tommy Pham from the White Sox, and the White Sox acquired Miguel Vargas along with a bunch of other minor leaguers. I you and I talked about this deal just before the start of the show. You were a little bit more higher on it for the Dodgers than I was anybody in this deal, because I'm not entirely sure why this deal was made for any of the teams involved, except for the White Sox, who, they're selling everything off that they don't need. So I totally understand why they were getting rid of players to bring in the youth. But for St. Louis, who has an entire arsenal of guys who throw, low 90s, who top out of low 90s, don't strike out a lot of guys. Eric Fetty's just a guy who, wants you to put it into play. He's very similar to the guys they have in the rotation already. So that's odd. And Tommy Edman can't stay healthy. I know you said he's a depth piece for Los Angeles, but it just seemed like I guess the Michael Kopech thing was the biggest head scratcher for me, because the Dodgers have struggled mightily in the bullpen the last couple of weeks, especially on that back end. It's a big point of contention for a lot of the Dodgers fandom, saying, well, they've got to figure out something with the bullpen. That's like the biggest hole that they have at the moment. I'm not sure how Michael Kopech fills it, because he's very random with his outcomes. He's just as likely to strike out the side on 9 pitches as he is to come in, give up 5 runs, and not get a single out. So good luck with that, LA. But what are your thoughts on this deal on the whole?
I'm with you on on the White Sox part. You knew what they're going to be doing. Again, they're just shipping everybody. As many people as they can get out, they will, and as much as they can bring in, that's what they're going to shoot for. I'm a lot higher on this one with the Dodgers, like you were saying. I did, to me, Kopech is, first season in the in the bullpen. He's been off and on 4.74 ERA. This is a situation for him. It's just another bullpen arm for Dave Roberts and in LA. I just, Tommy Edman, again, another depth piece. This is just the Dodgers adding more pieces, for a postseason run. That's all it is. For St. Louis, I don't get any of it. I just don't get the guys that they brought in. I mean, I don't know why.
You mean Tommy Pham doesn't get your juices flowing if you're a St. Louis Cardinal? I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Tommy Pham, and I think he can help. Yeah, he can help it, but I don't see how he helps the Cardinals all that much, where they've got a log jam of outfielders that all kind of do the same thing as Tommy Pham.
That was exactly my thing. Was like, what do you like? There was no real. I mean, like, why? I mean, that was kind of my thing. Why? Like, and Eric Fetty, I mean, I like him, great story and all, but the Cardinals, it's just like all their other pitchers, and I don't understand what the point is. I mean, it's not.
The Cardinals have a type.
They do. They do.
If you throw hard and strike out too many guys, you are not St. Louis Cardinals material.
You are not material. Yes, exactly. It just I don't get what they're doing, and I don't.
It's like I said, it's a very curious 3-team deal. For me, at least 2 of the 3, I'm kind of like, I don't really know why you make that deal.
I think honestly, they just threw the Dodgers in for shits and giggles, just to throw in these other pieces. That's got to be what it was, because
it must be
matching them up. St. Louis and Chicago on this one made no sense. So it's kind of like, well. Chicago's like, well, who can we get in terms of, prospects from, such and such team? Might as well, let's go with the Dodgers. They're looking for bullpen help.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, this was a weird one. I mean,
and don't get me wrong, Michael Kopech's fine enough for the back end. And I mean, in spurts, he can be like devastating, throwing 100-mile-an-hour gas and just back to the.
He's a starter. That was the thing. He was a starter. And
the reason he's no longer a starter is the same reason that he sometimes struggles as a reliever. His control. It's just all over the place. It's when he loses it, it's bad.
Oh, it is.
Like, I mean, having him as the guy between a W, like, I worry about Kopech in those one run games. If you're a Dodgers fan, like
That's why you don't pitch in 1-run games. You
yeah,
stay away from
well,
it.
get a closer that you can't
Yeah.
bring in unless there's a 3-run lead. Solid move.
Hey, you got to use your brain, man. That's how you got to do it. I'm going to outsmart these teams.
Well, let's get to a couple of more before things get too far away from us. Because tonight we had a couple of other bigger names moving. The Guardians acquire Lane Thomas from the Nationals for 3 prospects. And then I mentioned earlier, just before the show started, the Astros, and this deal hasn't been finalized, so we're not entirely sure who they're going to get, but the Astros will be getting Yusei Kikuchi from the Blue Jays. The Astros always looking for more starting pitcher depth. Justin Verlander's been on the IL for the last month or so, I think unexpectedly, but you talk about getting back into the playoff picture, hunting down Seattle to overtake first, and now it's all about getting guys healthy and them staying healthy and them running back and doing what they always do, which is getting the playoffs and winning. They'll meet you at the ALCS. Whoever it may be, they'll see you at the ALCS. I like this move because I'm a big fan of Kikuchi. I'm sure that the Astros didn't have to give up a ton. He is a pending free agent, and they've got a pretty solid farm system there in Houston to where I'm sure whatever pieces they did have to give up. And then when you're talking about the Guardians, I really like them getting Lane Thomas. They find a way. I mentioned last week, they find a way to make something out of nothing with outfielders and guys that they have in their system. But there's nothing wrong with trading for an established guy like Lane Thomas, who you know what you're going to get. He can give them a little bit more consistency and flexibility to move those other guys around to the different positions. But anytime you can lock down a position and have somebody that you can throw out there, 7 days a week if need be. In the Guardians' case, somebody like anybody that they haven't been able to develop either, you go ahead and take it. So your thoughts on both of these deals? Like I said, I like them both for the clubs getting the names.
So real quick while you were talking, I was searching for the Yusei Kikuchi deal. Keegan Matheson he's the Blue Jays reporter for MLB. He was talking about, so the player in return was, let's see, Astros finalizing a deal to acquire Yusei Kikuchi from the Blue Jays for right-handed pitcher.
Whoa.
Yeah, whoa, breaking news. Jake Bloss was scratched from his start tonight. He was set to, according to Keegan Matheson, he goes, the Jays needed to find someone like Jake Bloss at the deadline. They couldn't go into August without having addressed their pitching in a way that would help in 2025. He was set to be the number 2. Let's see, he was about to jump to number 2 on our MLB pipeline list of Astros top prospects. He will immediately become one of Blue Jays' top pitching prospects. So if that's the case, that is a haul for Toronto in that. So that is for a team that really needed the help with Ricky Tiedemann going down with Tommy John, that's a rough situation there. Now you get Jake Bloss here, who is, again, set to, be one of the top prospects overall. For Yusei Kikuchi, wow. I mean, great job by Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, in Toronto. If that's the case, good on them. They did a great job of bringing in quality pitching talent for a team that's desperately in need of it. In terms of the Lane Thomas deal, I like that one a lot. That was one we quickly touched on as well. Again,
Randy Arozarena with his first home run as a Seattle Mariner. So there's that. Already paying dividends there for Seattle.
Exactly.
Although they're getting their asses handed to them 12-3 against.
Oh yeah, they're getting absolutely murdered.
So there's that. But hey, Randy looks good.
Hey, yeah, fantastic. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, overall, the Nationals, they end up getting Cleveland number 8, number 22 prospects, like in a deal like this. But this is a good pickup for Cleveland and Lane Thomas. I like it a lot. Nothing really much else to say. You kind of touched on a lot of it. There were a couple other just smaller deals that were, pretty, I'd say, impactful. Earlier today, Michael Lorenzen going from the Rangers to the Royals. This was an interesting one. Michael Lorenzen, he's gone 101 and 2/3 innings so far this year with the Rangers, in 18 starts, 3.81 ERA. I love Michael Lorenzen. I've been a huge fan of his ever since, obviously he was a Red, but, watching him in college as well at Cal State Fullerton. Big fan of him. I mean, this is a good deal for Kansas City. It's another situation where they bolster their rotation. It's not a huge, you're not bringing in an ace by any means, but you're bringing in a guy that can seemingly like pitch every single day. That's what this guy's just a gamer. But that's a deal I really like. I mean, I know it's not, like I said, it's not a massive headlining deal, but a good solid deal for the Kansas City Royals. I mean, did you want to touch on that one real quick or go on to another one?
Nah, no, that's fine. You broke it down enough. But again, I mean, the Royals have done quite a few moves. We talked about it in the offseason. This is a solid enough move. It doesn't super move the needle, but I feel like the Royals are going to be hanging around long enough that we're going to look up and think, oh, that's right. We did pick the Royals to do pretty well this year, but they've been kind of quiet, if that's possible. Yeah. Like they've landed a few under the radar deals and whatnot, and they've done just enough to stay relevant, but none of them have been like big name deals. So yeah, I mean, I like it for the Royals, and the Royals seem to be at least headed in the right direction, not making anything flashy, not mortgaging their future, but doing just enough to stay in the conversation. So Lorenzen's somebody that, again, everybody's looking for starter depth. It can't go wrong. So
well, exactly. Yeah, that's man. Anytime you can add, add quality pitching, at the trade deadline, you got to do it. Another smaller deal. This was the Reds acquiring Ty France, first baseman, in cash for from the Mariners for minor league catcher Andrew Salcedo. This was France is going to be, he's going to help this team out. I think, Seattle just designated him for assignment. Reds, end up contacting him saying, hey, let's make out a deal. They do. Ty France is 30 years old. He'll be your first baseman. It's going to allow Spencer Steer to move back to the outfield, which is good, because then at that point in time now, you've already upgraded your offense now at first base, all while upgrading your offense in the outfield with Spencer Steer moving out there. So, a low-key deal by the Reds, and I think they did a good job. And Seattle picks up a minor league catcher who I want to say, I don't know where he was in terms of on the Reds, prospect list, but good deal for both teams. Again, it's more depth pieces, but it's one that just adds more offense for the Reds. So I like it. Other than that, really nothing much to really touch on. Another one today was the Mariners again, active as all hell, acquiring Justin Turner from the Toronto Blue Jays. They worked together, a couple days ago, with Garcia, going to, Seattle. So you might as well, send Justin Turner as well. It just adds more offense. Justin Turner is, he's 39 years old, batting .254. He's got 6 home runs. This is the situation where you're just adding offense is all you're doing. Another depth piece, for Seattle. We talked about it right at the beginning of the show. They need all the help they need offensively. This is just, this is another one, just adding another guy that can, a veteran who could hopefully help, lead your team, as you're pushing, towards the playoffs. But other than that, that was really, really it. There was one deal that didn't pop up here. Was it Ahmed Rosario? Yeah, here it is.
Oh, yeah, the Dodgers reacquiring Ahmed Rosario for the second trade deadline in a row. Like Tampa Bay shipping like anything else out that has legs.
Yeah, I mean, it's
anything that's not nailed down is on the trade block.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's how they roll. Ahmed Rosario, it's another, depth piece there for the Dodgers. you know, we'll see. We'll see what they do. But, you know.
And Mikey Baseball wondering why the Braves have made no moves.
Yeah, you
I,
touch on that one.
well, part of the reason I think is because the Braves yet again suffered another injury to one of their starters. This time yesterday was Reynaldo Lopez leaving after 3 innings in New York. He had the dreaded forearm tightness, was sent back to Atlanta for MRI. Didn't actually get any news on it. Was waiting all day to hear something about it, but didn't hear anything. Turns out no news might have been good news because according to the beat writers and those surrounding the Braves, he may have avoided injury, might just need rest, might not even have to go on the IL, might have just caught it soon enough that it's precautionary. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if the Braves skipped Reynaldo Lopez in his next turn through the rotation just to give him a little extra rest. You know, going back to the starter's workload after having been a reliever for the past couple of years, he's already stretched himself out further than he has the last few years, even though he did have that starter's workload back when he was with Chicago. But big sigh of relief if he did not suffer any injury. I know for me, for sure, as a fan, but I'm sure for Alex Anthopoulos as well, because it's been hard to, I'm sure, navigate the trade deadline and trying to figure out who to trade for and what to trade when every 2 seconds the Braves have seemingly suffered another injury. So hopefully they make some moves within the next 24 hours because I believe the trade deadline is 6 p.m. tomorrow. I'd imagine that they do something, but it's been tough because, you know, health has been an issue and the market has been such that the guys that the Braves might have been interested in have gone. And the Braves also are in a spot where, because they've graduated a lot of these guys and they're all guys, I think they have to rebuild their farm system. So the guys that they do have to trade, the trade chips that they have are guys that they're hoping can build for the future.
They're almost untouchables.
Yeah, I mean, they're reluctant to trade some of those guys because they have really bright futures, and in the short term, they are the depth. So, you know, you don't want to completely gut the system and gut your your farm system to where you don't have any depth or any trade chips at all. And the Braves kind of are on like teetering on that to where they're building it back up. But yeah, I mean, that's why they haven't really made any moves, because any of the moves that you'd had to have made over the last few days were probably costing a lot more than Alex Anthopoulos is willing to pay. So I don't blame him for not making the moves because there's not a whole lot of matches. So I would, like I said, I imagine that he makes some, but I don't think they're going to be very flashy. And they might not come until the last couple hours. So
yeah, I mean, Atlanta's they're in a bad spot in terms of.
I mean, when you're talking about the injuries and the fact, like I said, that you've got a lot of really promising young talent, but because they had used a lot of that talent to acquire some of the guys that are on the major league team now, you use a lot of the depth and capital that you had before, and all the other guys that they just are from their system. Like when you draft well and trade well and get those guys in your system, at some point they all move up. And it's hard to replenish the guys as fast as you either trade them away or have them move up. So, not everybody can be the damn Dodgers. Is the best way I can put it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't argue that. I got nothing to add on that. I feel bad for you. I really do.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is what it is. It's
one of those years, man.
It's part of the game, and all I can hope for is that in the next couple of weeks, somehow Atlanta gets healthy. Whatever moves that Anthopoulos does end up making help the team somewhat. At this point, it really is just, I've never believed more in just get in. Just fucking get in. I just hope that Atlanta is able to stay in the wild card picture all the way to the end. And then once they get there, if everybody can get healthy and everything can kind of level out as far as like the hitting and all the nonsense that Atlanta's had to deal with this year, then I think they'll be okay. But we're still talking about two months worth of baseball that have to be played. And Unfortunately, the way the Braves have played over the last 2 to 3 weeks ain't gonna get it done. So there's gonna have to be an upswing in how they play in order for them to hold on to the spot that they currently have. So
Yeah, it's rough.
yeah, well, nobody has any sympathy. I mean, did just
No.
win the World Series a couple of years ago, so
Well, that's true.
It's lonely at the top ish.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, maybe. Oh man, you got anything else?
Rex specifically saying that they need to make the playoffs because it's messing up his World Series prediction, which he had Cleveland beating Atlanta in the World Series. So, look, Rex, I'm right there with you. If it means that they get to the World Series and lose to Cleveland, I'm okay with that. To the way that this year has gone, being able to be National League champs and making sure that Philly does not make it back to the World Series would be all of the victory I need to consider this season a success, because it has been rough. So
yeah, it's. I mean, again, we talked about it. I want to say. Oh, I was just looking at Talking Baseball. Did White Sox relievers held a farewell ceremony for Michael Kopech? Oh shit, the quirks of baseball. Yeah, just caught my eye on that one, but. Yeah, but again, this is just one of those seasons, man, where it's just it's like for some teams, whatever can go wrong has gone wrong, and it's just again, it's been like that, throughout the entire league. It's not just one team facing it. It seems like everyone has been getting hit hard by by injuries. So it sucks. Again, it's just another one where the Braves just they can't catch a break.
Yeah, no kidding. Any predictions or any thoughts on any trades that we might see over the next just under 24 hours before everything wraps up? Anything you're hoping to see?
No, because I mean, I'm trying to think here if there's really what big pieces are out there. I mean, Garrett Crochet said he's going to be a pain in the ass, so he's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, Jack Flaherty, I know his name has been batted around.
But he's not a big name.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I don't think that there's going to be a ton of big names. It's all going to be B and C pieces that move, where they might have a slight impact, but they're not going to change. They're not going to change a whole lot. Is there anything that stands out to you? I mean, I'm guessing that Seattle is so far your deadline winner based on the moves that they've made. Safe to say, I mean, they've done the most moving, and they've brought in the most impactful names. So I guess I'm there with you on that one, because I don't think there's anybody that's made as many moves as Seattle. So
yeah. Wait, what team? Real quick, what team has disappointed you the most?
I think Atlanta, just for personal reasons. I mean, knowing that they're hamstrung and what they can do, and again, suffering the injuries right up until the final hour, as far as knowing what you have and what you're going to be or what you're trying to accomplish as far as improvement. It's disappointment, not in Alex, but just the situation and the fact that they're not in a position where they can just start throwing prospects around and being able to bring in a bunch of these names.
I think this is the first year that he's really handcuffed, Yeah,
well, and in a perfect world, you wouldn't have to. Like, if guys were healthy, like, how many more improvements would you really have to make? It would be peripheral improvements, like adding bullpen pieces and all that, instead of saying, well,
just a piece here and there.
Yeah. Right, it'd be nice if they got an outfielder, or it'd be nice if they got a starter. Well, that's the same thing everybody's saying. So it's not exactly easy to just add those guys or add more than one of them, or if they're in the conversations, because I know there were a lot of people that thought that they'd be in the Jazz sweepstakes, but I'm guessing that the Marlins, it's tough to trade in division, and I'm guessing that the Marlins got a better offer from the Yankees. Totally understand that.
Yeah. Well, let's be real too. With the injury history that you've had so far this year, why do you want to trade
I was going to say adding a Jazz doesn't make sense either. So
exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of factors into why the Braves are the most disappointing, but they still are for me. Just because I wish that they could do more.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think in terms of the teams that are really competing, I mean, obviously locally, the Reds. I'm really curious to see what they do now. Are they ones that's, here they are. They're beating Chicago right now 7-0 in the eighth inning. This is a big series for them. You're going up against the team that you're battling with right now. You know, the losing 2 of 3 to Tampa, over the weekend doesn't help your situation at all. So then that seemingly shifted their mindset from all right, possibly buying to selling. But then you go out here and you have a performance like this, then you bring in a guy like Ty France, to help, add to it. What do the Reds do? That's one I'm really intrigued to see. In terms of really anybody else, I mean, it's really,
Well, and in the Reds situation, people have looked to them for the last 2 years and wondered, oh, hey, are they going to do anything now? Last year they had that team that was up and coming, and everybody knew they needed pitching, and they were at least two starters away from being, right there in that conversation. Didn't do anything. And then this year the offense has taken a step back and they have better pitching. But I don't know how much you can mess with the offense, because I don't know. There's not a whole lot that you would want to get rid of. Most of the guys that have been struggling because of injuries or whatever. What has been they haven't had a whole lot they've never really got started. It feels like on offense, because every time somebody comes back, then somebody's knocked back out. So I'm not entirely sure what they would add, but it would be nice to see them. They're one of those teams that is like, yeah, hey guys, do something.
Yeah.
It'd be like, hey, even the Mets are trying.
The freaking
they're
Mets.
pretending.
Exactly. Yeah, they are pretending. Oh, good Lord. The good old Mets. Well, other than that, I mean, I've got nothing really else in terms of, looking forward to really anything. I mean, are the Mariners done? That's one thing that I've seen online. I've heard that they're not.
I was going to say it'd be interesting if they're still making pushes for guys out there. I mean, they're not going to add Flaherty because they don't need any starters. But
no.
I mean, I could imagine if they somehow were able to get another bat. But after adding Turner, I feel like that kind of suggests they might be done. But I could see them adding another bullpen arm.
That's what I was wondering. I'd seen something, and I want to say, matching up with the Reds with Jonathan India and even one of their bullpen pieces. And I'm like, it kind of, I mean, it intrigued me. The Reds and Mariners, have been really close on trades in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That might actually be a good fit, bringing Jonathan India out there, because seemingly it's, everyone here in Cincinnati, wants him out. It's weird. Like the curious case of Jonathan India. I mean, I don't get it.
His relationship with this city has been an interesting one.
So weird. I mean, this is one of the oddest things that I can recall in a long time. And I think this is one where, I think a matchup with Seattle would be very intriguing. I think he would really help them out a lot. It's another right-handed bat for him. Who knows? And again, you can add one of the bullpen pieces, here in Cincinnati as well. That might be something. And what do the Reds get in return? That's, are they willing to, addition by subtraction on that? Who knows? I mean, I'm with you. It's going to be a lot of B and C moves. You're not going to see any A's or anything like that. I just think that.
There'll probably be plenty of A's.
They haven't
even gotten involved in the trade discussion.
They're sitting quiet as well. That's weird. Yeah.
Billy Bean could have quite a few up his sleeve tomorrow. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I'll never put anything past him when it comes to trade deadline either.
I mean, I know that Brett Rooker was the big name coming out of Oakland as far as who might get traded, and also Mason Miller. But with Miller being on the IL after smashing his hand like a dummy over the week, you're left with Rooker, and the A's saying over the weekend that they didn't really have much interest in trading Rooker, which to me suggested like nobody had met their price for Rooker yet, and they were telling
exactly
that you need to pony up more. So I could still see Rooker getting moved, but I guess it wouldn't shock me entirely because he's having a great year. And at some point, if you're the A's, you do need to build around somebody. And I'm not saying that Brent Rooker is going to be there by the time that they're relevant again, but he's not a player. I guess good for them if they're not just giving him away, because I certainly wouldn't. He's a player worth, keeping around, or he's not just a throw in or a throwaway guy. So,
well, in terms of the Yusei Kikuchi deal, so Ben Nicholson-Smith, who covers the Blue Jays for Sportsnet, Blue Jays are getting Jake Bloss, Joey Loperfido, and Will Wagner for Yusei Kikuchi.
So Loperfido was part of it.
So they freaking fleeced him.
That's that's a pretty big
haul
deal
and a half, man. Like, I thought it was a 1-for-1. Oh my Lord, no. That is, man, if that's the case, I mean, that's wow.
I don't know if they gave up too much, but if I'm a Toronto fan, I'm super happy about what we got back.
Dude, I'm tickled shitless. And here's the thing. I mean, like, you look at the comments now, again, you're reading comments from guys, who are on, are on Twitter thinking they, run organizations. Well, this one dumb shit goes, the Blue Jays got fleeced. That, or no, that can't be. I think he means the Jays fleeced them is what they have to be meaning on that, because there's no way. That's what I'm saying. Because the 1-for-1's still great, but I mean, you had Loperfido in that one too as well.
Well, and again, Kikuchi is a free agent at the end of the year, so whatever you're getting for Reynolds already good. I certainly wasn't expecting 3 names like that to come back.
No, especially if Kikuchi comes back and signs with him in the offseason. It would be hilarious. Pull the old Aroldis Chapman. Like, that would be. Yeah, but wow, that's a great job there by the Jays. If that's the official, that's what they're saying. That's the deal's done based off of that. Coming from, sources are telling Shai Davidi and Ben Nicholson-Smith. So, damn, good for the Jays on that one. That's awesome. Good on them.
Yeah, because, we talk about the winners and the losers and all of the teams who end up acquiring the big-name players, but I'd like to go back and look at how many of these deadline deals, like what type of players end up coming out of these. Like, do teams traditionally have more success on deadline deals, or do they have more success on off-season trades?
That is a really, man.
I'd like to go back and look at and see like who got traded at the deadline over the past, I'd probably have to be like 5 to 10 years and see if there were names that came out of deadline deals more often than not. Because I can't really think of too many like impact, but it's so hard to keep track of when guys get traded to certain teams and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like it's hard enough to remember what team they're on, let alone when the deal actually happened. So
here's one, people in the end of Mike Farron quote tweeted it when I was reading about, Shai Davidi, and he goes, I actually blurted, whoa. So that's, from a guy who covers baseball and, he's, on the radio each and every day, he's kind of like, wow, that's interesting. That'll be one to listen to, the reaction tomorrow throughout the league, because that's, let's be real. That now sets a precedent here for the rest of this, rest of tonight and tomorrow for starting pitching. So, when you've got, Yusei Kikuchi, who I like, I think he's a solid left-handed pitcher. He's not flashy, but he's a serviceable pitcher in this league. And, I think he's going to certainly obviously help out the Astros, but man, that price now for starting pitching, if you're a team that's got a starter, you've got to be sitting back, licking your chops now thinking, man, okay, if this is what Houston gave up for Kikuchi, man, imagine what they could get, imagine what Chicago could get if Crochet would, get his head out of his ass.
Stop deciding he didn't want to play.
Yeah, that would be a huge, haul for him. If that's the price you're going to get on, yeah, here we go. Here's the thing. If this is the market, I can't even fathom what oh shit. I didn't even think about that. You still got Tarek Skubal out there. You've got, obviously Jack Flaherty.
I was going to say that's a no-go. No, I don't think Scuba's going anywhere, not with prices like that.
Well, that's the thing I was just going to say, but a guy tweeted that and goes, if this is the market, I can't even fathom what the Tigers should be getting for Jack Flaherty, which is exactly what I was talking about. We know that the price now has completely skyrocketed. And
if you're in the market for a starting pitcher, you're probably screwed now.
Yeah, you're going damn it, Houston. What are you doing? Because now, again, that price now for Tarek Skubal has, skyrocketed. And then now you're going to add, Jack Flaherty, who is probably what I would say the next best pitching piece out there.
Yeah, I would say he's the last best available, truly available pitching piece. Everybody else is just speculation, and I don't necessarily think get moved unless teams get blown away. But the most realistic tradable piece left is Jack Flaherty.
And and now that price is just, doubled, which is crazy.
Well, I guess we will wait for the next, like I said, less than 24 hours to kind of figure it all out and go through it all. But for us, I think that's going to do it for the week.
I think they will.
I'm interested to see where things land, though, and what we have to discuss next week. Because if anything is as crazy as the last 4 days, then we're in for quite the next 24 hours. But this has been the Backwards K Baseball Show. We thank you for joining us for this trade extravaganza. We hope you enjoy the rest of the trade deadline in the next 24 hours. We will be watching, we will be speculating, and we will be judging. And we'll be back here all next week to break it down and what this means as we head towards the playoffs. Again, you can find Backwards K on Facebook, on Twitter, and anywhere you find any of your fine podcasts. Also on the Impact Sports Cincinnati Network and the podcast, the Craft Root Sports Podcasting Network. We thank you guys for joining us. For Chris, I am Scott. This has been Backwards K. We'll check you guys next week. Cheers, everybody.